Single mom took her baby and left 1 year later. The billionaire got a hospital emergency call. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. The skyline of New York shimmered beneath the morning light, but inside Nathan Reed's office, silence was heavier than gold. He stood by the window on the 63rd floor, his reflection fractured across the glass. A year had passed since the divorce, but the loneliness still clung to him like dust he could not wipe away. Once, his world had been full of noise meetings, laughter, her voice echoing down the hallway, but now there was only the mechanical hum of success. Nathan Reed, founder of Reed Technologies, billionaire before 40, man who never missed a deal, had everything that power could buy except peace. On his desk sat a single photograph turned face down. He had not looked at it in months, yet he could not throw it away. The frame held the memory of Emily Brooks, his ex-wife, and the small child she carried when she walked out of their apartment one rain-soaked night. She had said only 5 words before leaving. "You do not know love." At first, he told himself she was wrong. He told himself that love was measured by provision, by security, by what he built for them. But as days became months, her absence became louder than any board meeting. The mansion grew silent. The dinners became one-sided. Even the piano she loved gathered dust. He sometimes woke from restless sleep, thinking he had heard a baby cry. But the sound was only the echo of guilt. On that morning, the city was waking up beneath him, but Nathan felt like the only man still asleep inside his own success. He loosened his tie, staring at the horizon where glass met cloud. That was when the phone rang. The sound was sharp, cutting through the quiet like a blade. His assistant's voice trembled slightly. "Sir, Mercy Hospital is on the line. They said it is urgent." Nathan frowned. Hospitals rarely called billionaires without reason. He picked up the phone, his tone steady. "This is Nathan Reed." The voice on the other end was calm but firm. "Mr. Reed, this is Dr. Elaine Porter from Mercy Hospital. I am calling regarding Emily Brooks. She has listed you as her emergency contact." Nathan's breath caught before he could answer. The doctor continued, unaware of the storm gathering behind his silence. "She was admitted early this morning. There are complications." She also mentioned a child. The world tilted. For the first time in a long while, Nathan forgot about the meetings, the mergers, the deadlines. All he could hear was the faint echo of Emily's voice the night she left. "You do not know, love." He reached for his coat without thinking. The skyline blurred beyond the window as he whispered to himself, "Maybe I am about to learn." He had everything money could buy. But that morning, one call reminded him what he had truly lost. The rain began just as Nathan Reed's car pulled away from the tower. Grey clouds pressed low over Manhattan, turning glass and steel into a blur of silver. His driver glanced back through the mirror, waiting for instructions. But Nathan only said, "Mercy Hospital, now." His voice was low, but there was an urgency that left no room for questions. As the city rushed by, memories pushed against the edges of his control. He remembered the last time he had seen Emily. It had been in their apartment, a space once filled with warmth and now stripped bare by silence. She had stood near the doorway, her coat folded over one arm, her other arm cradling their infant daughter. He had been too proud, too logical, too afraid of feeling. "If you walk out now, do not expect me to come after you," he had said, his words like cold metal. She had nodded, tears on her cheeks. "I do not expect you to," she had whispered. Now, as the car sped toward the hospital, he wished he had. Nathan arrived within 20 minutes, his shoes splashing through shallow puddles as he entered the glass doors of Mercy Hospital. The antiseptic smell hit him first, clean and sharp. The front desk nurse looked up, startled by the sudden appearance of a man whose name was often printed on business magazines. "I am here for Emily Brooks," he said. The nurse checked the system, then pressed a button for the maternity floor. "Room 421, Mr. Reed. The doctor will meet you there." He thanked her quietly and stepped into the elevator. The soft hum of machinery filled the air. His reflection in the mirrored wall looked older than he remembered, tired eyes, hair touched with grey at the temples, lines of regret tracing years of decisions that had cost him everything. When the doors opened, a nurse in blue scrubs was waiting. "Mr. Reed, I am Dr. Porter. Thank you for coming so quickly." She walked beside him down the hall. Emily Brooks was admitted early this morning with severe exhaustion and complications due to untreated pneumonia. She is stable now, but she had a fainting episode at home. A neighbor found her and brought her here. She has a child with her, a little girl around 1 year old. Nathan stopped walking. A little girl? His throat tightened. Yes, the doctor replied gently. Emily mentioned your name as the father. The child's name is Lily. The name pierced something deep inside him. Lily. He had never known it, never been there when she was born, never held her even once. He followed Dr. Porter into a softly lit room. Emily lay on the hospital bed, her skin pale but peaceful, a small oxygen tube beneath her nose. Beside her crib, a baby slept soundly, her tiny chest rising and falling beneath a yellow blanket patterned with stars. Nathan's breath caught. The child had his eyes. He stood still, afraid that if he moved, the fragile moment would vanish. Dr. Porter spoke quietly. She needs rest. Her condition is improving, but she will need help when she is discharged. The little one is healthy, just frightened and hungry earlier. We have provided formula and care. Nathan nodded slowly, his eyes never leaving the baby. He stepped closer, resting a trembling hand on the side of the crib. Lily, he whispered, tasting the name. The baby stirred, her hand curling into a small fist, and for the first time in a year, Nathan felt something break open inside him, something raw and human. Behind him, Emily shifted, her voice weak but steady. You came. He turned, startled by the sound. Her eyes were open, filled with exhaustion and a guarded kind of disbelief. They called me, he said, his voice rough. They said it was an emergency. There have been many emergencies, she murmured, her gaze drifting to the baby. But none of them ever reached you before. Nathan took a hesitant step forward. I did not know about her. Emily's eyes glistened. You would have, if you had asked. The silence between them stretched heavy, filled with the hum of machines and the rain tapping against the window. Nathan lowered himself into the chair beside her bed, his shoulders sagging under the weight of every wrong word he had ever spoken. Emily, he began quietly, I cannot change the past. But let me help now. She closed her eyes, too tired to argue, too tired to hope. Help is not the same as love, Nathan. Her voice was barely a whisper. He looked at her, at the fragile woman who once believed in him, and then at the small child who was proof of what he had thrown away. Maybe, he said softly, but it is where I will start. Outside, thunder rolled over the city, but inside the room, there was a stillness that felt almost sacred. Nathan reached out, not for her hand yet, but for the edge of the crib. The smallest fingers brushed against his. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a CEO or a man of power. He felt like a father rediscovering his heart. And in that quiet hospital room, between the sound of rain and the steady beep of a heart monitor, something fragile began to mend. The next morning came with pale sunlight seeping through the blinds of the hospital room. Nathan Reed sat in the same chair, still wearing yesterday's clothes. His posture straight but his eyes heavy. He had not slept. Every sound during the night, the soft hiss of the oxygen, the rhythm of the heart monitor, the faint sigh of the little girl in the crib, had woven itself into his thoughts. For years, his life had been measured by profits and quarterly reports. But now he found himself counting the breaths of a child he had never met until the day before. Emily stirred on the bed, her voice quiet. You stayed? Nathan nodded. I was not sure if I should leave. Her lips curved in a faint, tired smile. That is new for you. He accepted the truth without protest. There was no point in defending what he had been. How long have you been sick? He asked softly. Months, she replied. It started as a cold. I could not afford the medication, and I could not miss work. The bills did not stop. Her gaze shifted toward the crib. She needed formula more than I needed rest. Nathan's chest tightened. You should have called me. I tried, she said, her tone calm, almost resigned. But pride is expensive, and you once told me that I was the one who chose this. Her words cut cleanly, reminding him of every argument, every moment he had dismissed her fear as weakness. He looked toward Lily, now awake and staring at him with curious dark eyes. When she smiled, something inside him softened. She looks like you, he said quietly. Emily shook her head. She has your eyes, the serious ones that study everything but reveal nothing. The nurse entered with a clipboard. checking Emily's vitals. "You are improving," she said warmly, "but you will need rest for at least 2 weeks." Emily nodded, though Nathan could see the worry behind her eyes. "I cannot rest. I will lose my job." Nathan leaned forward. "Then you will not go back for now. I will handle the expenses." Her head turned sharply toward him. "I do not want your charity." "It is not charity," he said, his tone firm but gentle. "It is responsibility." The nurse smiled faintly, sensing the tension, and excused herself from the room. Nathan stood, walking to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the city washed and gleaming. "Emily, I know I failed you," he began slowly. "I built a company, but I never built a home. I worked for a future that did not include peace. I thought money could solve everything." He turned to her, his voice quieter. "It solved nothing." Emily listened, her expression unreadable. "Words are easy now," she said after a moment. "But a year ago, when I begged you to slow down, to see me, to see her, you did not listen." "I was blind," Nathan admitted. "And now?" she asked. "Now," he said, glancing again at the sleeping child, "I want to learn to see." There was a pause between them, fragile and uncertain, but different from the silence that once filled their home. This silence carried a pulse of possibility. Emily closed her eyes, fatigue overtaking her again. Nathan watched as her breathing steadied. He adjusted the blanket around her shoulders, then moved to the crib. The little girl reached out a tiny hand, wrapping her fingers around one of his. The touch was feather-light, yet powerful enough to shake every certainty he had ever known. For the first time, Nathan understood what it meant to hold something that could not be bought. He sat beside the crib, whispering, "I missed your first steps, your first words, your first everything, but I will not miss what comes next." When Emily woke hours later, the sunlight had shifted, and Nathan was still there, watching Lily with quiet awe. For a long moment, Emily said nothing. The scene before her, Nathan holding the child, his head bent, a soft smile on his face, was something she had imagined countless times, but never believed she would see. "She likes you," Emily said softly. Nathan looked up. "I hope she will forgive me someday." "Children forgive easier than adults," Emily replied. "It is the grown-ups who carry the weight." Nathan nodded, understanding. "Then I will carry it for as long as it takes." Outside the hospital window, the city hummed with life. Unaware that inside a small white room, a man who once measured his worth in millions was learning the cost of love measured not in money, but in moments. Later that afternoon, Nathan Reed walked out of the hospital cafeteria with 2 paper cups of coffee and a small carton of juice. He had spent most of the day sitting between Emily's bed and Lily's crib, answering calls from his assistant in short sentences, his attention never leaving the 2 people in front of him. The world outside the hospital continued to turn, but Nathan's world had narrowed to one quiet room on the 4th floor. When he returned, Emily was awake, watching Lily as she tried to reach a toy dangling from the edge of the crib. "You do not have to stay all day," Emily said softly, not looking at him. "You have a company to run." Nathan placed the coffee beside her bed. "The company will survive without me for 1 day." She let out a tired sigh. "You say that like it is easy." "It is not," he admitted. "But I am realizing that everything I built means nothing if I cannot be here when you need help." Emily glanced at him then, her eyes uncertain. "You were never here before. Why now?" He hesitated before answering. "Because I thought being a provider was enough. I did not know that being present was what you needed." She gave a faint smile, one filled with sadness. "Lily needed that too." Nathan looked at the little girl. "I know. I will not make the same mistake twice." Lily reached for him suddenly, small fingers opening and closing in invitation. Nathan lifted her gently, surprised by how natural it felt. She stared up at him with wide eyes before resting her head against his shoulder, content. Emily's expression softened, the defensive edge in her posture fading for a moment. "She likes you," she whispered. Nathan smiled faintly. "I like her too." For a while, the only sound in the room was the quiet hum of machines and Lily's soft breathing. It was a fragile peace, one built on memories neither of them were ready to face. Then Emily spoke again, her voice lower. "They said I could go home tomorrow." Nathan straightened. "Home? You are still weak. You should rest here longer." "Hospitals cost money, Nathan," she reminded him. "Even with insurance, it adds up. I have already stayed longer than I can afford." He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. He knew she would not accept pity. "Then let me at least drive you home," he said instead, "and make sure you and Lily have what you need." "You do not have to." "I want to," he interrupted gently. Their eyes met, the silence between them thick with everything unspoken. Emily looked away first. "All right," she said quietly, "but just the ride." The next morning came cold and bright. Nathan helped the nurse carry Lily's things to the car, while Emily followed slowly, bundled in a worn coat. The hospital staff smiled politely, unaware of the history walking past them. When they reached the parking lot, Emily froze for a moment, staring at the sleek black car waiting by the curb. "You still drive the same model," she murmured. "Different color," he said. "The last one reminded me too much of the life we had." She climbed into the back seat with Lily in her arms. The drive was quiet except for the baby's occasional coo. Emily's apartment was in a small building on the east side, modest but clean. Nathan carried the bags up the narrow stairs, taking in the peeling paint and flickering hallway light. Inside, the apartment was small, a living room that doubled as a dining area, a kitchenette, and a single bedroom. The furniture was second-hand but neatly arranged. A small crib stood near the couch, and above it, pinned on the wall, was a faded photograph of Emily holding Lily in the park. Nathan looked around, guilt rising in his chest. "You did all this on your own?" he asked quietly. "There was no one else," she said simply. "We managed." He placed the bags down, unsure what to say. "You were always strong." Emily met his gaze, her expression soft but tired. "Strength is not something I wanted to learn. It was something I had to." Nathan nodded slowly. He wanted to apologize again, but words felt small in the face of what she had endured. Instead, he said, "If you need anything, call me." "I will try," she replied, though they both knew she probably would not. As he turned to leave, Lily reached toward him again, giggling. Nathan smiled, touching her tiny hand. "Goodbye for now, little one." When the door closed behind him, the quiet hallway felt heavier than before. He had left a piece of himself in that small apartment, the piece that had finally remembered what love meant. 3 days later, Nathan Reed found himself sitting in his office again, but the room no longer felt the same. The skyline of New York stretched endlessly beyond the glass, but the view did not comfort him. He had spent years chasing numbers, yet the quiet moments at Mercy Hospital kept replaying in his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emily's tired smile and the little girl's curious gaze. The sound of Lily's laughter lingered longer than any applause from his board meetings. Nathan tried to bury himself in work, reviewing reports, signing documents, and answering calls, but even his assistant noticed the difference. "You have not taken a break all day," she said carefully. "You should rest." He gave her a faint smile. Resting is harder than working. After she left, he opened the drawer of his desk. Inside, next to the neatly arranged files, was a small photo that the nurse had given him before Emily was discharged. It was of Lily, sleeping peacefully in the hospital crib. He traced the edges of the picture with his thumb, feeling a mix of pride and guilt that words could not express. That evening, as the city lights began to glow, Nathan left the office without telling anyone. The driver was surprised when Nathan gave an unfamiliar address. "East Side, Maple Avenue," he said. The apartment building looked even smaller in the dark, but the windows glowed with soft, yellow light. He hesitated before knocking. Emily opened the door, startled to see him. "Nathan, is everything all right?" "I just wanted to check if you were both okay," he said. She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment was warm, filled with the gentle hum of a lullaby playing from a small speaker. Lily was sitting on a blanket on the floor, surrounded by a few wooden toys. When she saw Nathan, her face lit up with recognition. She let out a small laugh and crawled toward him, her arms raised. Nathan bent down, scooping her up carefully. "Hey, little one," he said softly. "You remember me?" Emily watched them, her expression unreadable. "She does not usually warm up to people so quickly," she said. "Maybe she just knows," he replied. Emily folded her arms. "Knows what?" "That I missed a year of her life," he said quietly. The honesty in his voice made her pause. "Nathan, I do not want you to feel obligated." "This is not about obligation," he said firmly. "It is about being present now, even if I was absent before." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The baby reached for Nathan's tie, tugging at it playfully. He laughed, and Emily felt something stir in her chest, a feeling she had not allowed herself to feel in a long time. Nathan looked around the small living room. "Do you have everything you need?" "We manage," she answered, repeating the same words as before. "But the bills are heavy, and my job barely covers rent." He nodded. "Then let me help. Not out of pity, but as Lily's father." "Father," Emily repeated quietly, the word foreign yet familiar. "You are just realizing that now." "Yes," he admitted, "and I will spend the rest of my life proving it." The sincerity in his tone left no room for argument. She looked at him, searching for the man she used to love and the one standing before her now. He looked older, but there was a gentleness in his eyes that had not been there before. "All right," she said softly. "You can visit. But no promises, Nathan. I am still figuring out what forgiveness looks like." He nodded slowly. "Then we will figure it out together." He stayed for an hour, helping feed Lily her dinner. When it was time to leave, the child clung to his sleeve, refusing to let go. Emily smiled faintly. "She has already made her decision." Nathan chuckled. "Then I guess I will be seeing both of you again soon." As he walked down the hallway, the sound of Lily's laughter followed him. It was small, fragile, and pure an echo that reached deeper than any success he had ever known. For the first time in a long while, Nathan did not feel lost. He had found something worth fighting for, something that made him human again. Over the next week, Nathan Reed began visiting Emily and Lily almost every evening. It started with simple check-ins, short visits that he justified as making sure they were safe, but each time he stayed a little longer. Sometimes he brought groceries, other times small toys for Lily that made her giggle and clap her hands. Emily never asked for anything, yet she did not turn him away. The rhythm of their lives began to intertwine again, quietly, cautiously. One evening, after work, Nathan knocked on their door holding a bag of soup and fresh bread. Emily opened the door, surprised. "You cooked?" she asked with a raised brow. "Not exactly," he admitted, smiling. "I bought it from that diner near your building. The owner said it is the best chicken soup in the city." Emily stepped aside, allowing him in. The apartment smelled faintly of baby lotion and detergent. Lily was on the floor, stacking colorful blocks, her focus intense. When she saw Nathan, she squealed with joy and crawled toward him. "She is always happy to see you," Emily said quietly, watching them. "I think she knows I am trying," he replied, kneeling to her level. Lily offered him a block, her eyes bright. Nathan accepted it with exaggerated seriousness, making her laugh again. For a moment, the sound filled the small apartment, warm and alive. After dinner, while Emily washed the dishes, Nathan sat on the couch with Lily asleep in his arms. The soft rise and fall of her breathing calmed him in a way nothing else had. When Emily returned, she paused, watching the scene before her. "She has never fallen asleep that fast," she said softly. Nathan looked up. Maybe she just feels safe. Their eyes met, and the air between them shifted. There was no bitterness this time, no accusation, only a quiet understanding of what had been lost and what might still be rebuilt. "You should put her down," Emily said, breaking the silence. He nodded and carried the baby to the crib, tucking the blanket around her gently. When he turned back, Emily was leaning against the kitchen doorway, her expression thoughtful. "Nathan," she began, her tone cautious, "why are you really doing this? You have your own life, your company. You do not owe me anything." He stepped closer, his voice steady but soft. "Maybe I do not owe you, but I owe her. And maybe part of me owes myself the chance to make things right." Emily looked at him, searching for traces of the man she used to know. He looked different now, not just older, but humbler. "You cannot fix everything with effort," she said quietly. "Some things just stay broken." Nathan nodded slowly. "Then I will build something new, piece by piece, if you let me." She did not respond immediately. The weight of the past still pressed between them, but she could see the sincerity in his eyes. Finally, she said, "We will see." He accepted her words with quiet gratitude. As he prepared to leave, he placed a folded envelope on the counter. "What is this?" she asked. "It is not money," he assured her quickly. "It is an invitation. There is a company event next weekend, a family-friendly one. I want you and Lily to come. No pressure, no expectations. Just come." Emily hesitated. "I do not belong in that world anymore." "You belong wherever you want to," Nathan said, "and I would like you to see what I have built, because everything I have now only means something if I can share it with you and her." She looked down at the envelope, conflicted. "I will think about it." Nathan smiled, a mix of hope and restraint. "That is all I ask." When he stepped out into the cool night air, he felt lighter. The city buzzed around him, but for the first time, its noise did not drown out the sound of purpose inside him. Somewhere behind those apartment walls, a small child slept peacefully, and a woman who once walked away was beginning to look at him differently. He knew rebuilding trust would take time, but for the first time in years, Nathan Reed did not measure progress in profits or percentages. He measured it in moments like this, quiet, human, real. Saturday arrived sooner than Emily expected. All week she had thought about Nathan's invitation, turning it over in her mind while she worked, cooked, and cared for Lily. Part of her wanted to refuse, to stay safe within the small world she had built. But another part of her, quieter yet persistent, whispered that maybe it was time to stop running from the past. When Nathan called that morning to check in, she surprised herself by saying, "We will come." His voice carried a mixture of relief and warmth. "Thank you, Emily. You have no idea how much that means." A few hours later, Nathan's car pulled up in front of the building. Emily stood by the door with Lily on her hip, her nerves showing in the way she adjusted the baby's small bow twice before stepping outside. Nathan stepped out of the car, dressed simply but elegant, and for a moment she saw the man she had once loved, before ambition had hardened him. "You look beautiful," he said honestly. Emily smiled faintly. It has been a long time since anyone said that. The event was being held at a park that overlooked the Hudson River, an annual company picnic for Reed Technologies employees and their families. As the car approached, Emily saw children running across the grass, balloons tied to picnic tables, and tents filled with food and laughter. It was lively but not ostentatious, surprisingly warm for a company led by a billionaire. Nathan carried Lily as they walked toward the main area, drawing a few curious glances from employees who recognized their usually distant CEO. "Sir, is that your family?" one of the managers asked. Nathan smiled without hesitation. "Yes," he said simply, and the word carried more truth than any statement he had made in years. Emily felt her heart tighten. She was not sure if it was pride or fear. The day unfolded gently. Nathan introduced Emily to his team as someone important from his past, though he avoided the word ex-wife. Emily appreciated the discretion. She helped Lily explore the park, guiding her toward a small play area where the toddler laughed as she chased bubbles. Nathan joined them later, rolling up his sleeves, unbothered by the grass stains on his expensive pants. Seeing him kneel beside Lily, helping her stand, Emily felt something old and familiar stir a memory of the man who once painted the nursery himself because he wanted it perfect before their baby arrived. After lunch, the company photographer asked to take a group photo. Nathan hesitated only briefly before motioning Emily and Lily to join him. She started to protest, but he whispered, "Please, just one picture. For her, not for me." She nodded, standing beside him while he held Lily in his arms. The flash went off, capturing a moment neither of them would forget. Later, as the sun began to set, Emily found herself standing near the water, watching the orange light ripple across the river. Nathan approached quietly, holding 2 cups of lemonade. "You handled today better than I did," he said lightly. She smiled. "You looked nervous." "I was," he admitted. "I kept thinking how different everything feels when you two are here. The place, the people, even the work, it all feels alive again." Emily looked at him, the wind catching strands of her hair. "You have changed," she said softly. "Maybe too late. Maybe right on time," he replied. They stood in silence for a moment, the only sound the faint laughter of children in the distance. Lily toddled toward them, arms outstretched. Nathan lifted her up effortlessly, and the little girl rested her head on his shoulder, content and sleepy. Emily watched them together, her eyes reflecting a quiet ache. "I do not know what the future looks like, Nathan," she said. "I am still afraid of being hurt." He nodded slowly. "Then let me be the one who proves that you do not have to be." As the sun dipped below the skyline, Nathan placed his hand gently over Emily's, not to claim, but to connect. For the first time since she left him, she did not pull away. The city lights began to glow behind them, but the real light was in that fragile, wordless moment, a small beginning where love had once ended. The following week passed in a blur of soft mornings and quiet realizations. Emily found herself thinking about the picnic more than she wanted to. The way Nathan had looked at Lily, the ease in his smile, and the way he had spoken to her not as a businessman but as a man rediscovering how to feel, had unsettled her in the gentlest way. She tried to return to her routine, focusing on work and caring for Lily, but her thoughts often drifted back to that moment by the river. Nathan, meanwhile, carried the image of that day everywhere he went. The photograph from the picnic now sat framed on his desk at Reed Technologies, next to the one of his parents that had been there for years. Every time he looked at it, he was reminded of what really mattered. He began making small changes at work, shorter meetings, flexible hours for employees with families, even organizing a daycare program inside the company building. His board members were surprised, but none dared to question the man who had built their success. Still, when the workday ended, Nathan found his thoughts traveling back to Emily's apartment, to the sound of Lily's laughter and the warmth he had missed for so long. One evening, after an especially long day, he drove to their building unannounced, a bouquet of daisies in hand. When Emily opened the door, she looked startled but not angry. "Nathan," she said slowly, "what are you doing here?" "I wanted to see you both," he admitted, and to apologize again properly this time. She stepped aside, letting him in. The apartment was dimly lit, the television humming softly with a children's show. Lily sat on the floor, clapping at the colorful shapes on the screen. When she saw Nathan, she beamed and reached her arms up toward him. He set the flowers down and lifted her, his heart melting at the way she fit so perfectly against his chest. "I missed you, little one," he said quietly. Emily watched him, her expression a mix of caution and tenderness. "She has that effect on people," she said. "No," Nathan replied, meeting her eyes. "You both do." For a while they sat together on the couch, Lily drifting in and out of sleep between them. Nathan spoke softly. "Emily, I know I cannot undo what I did. I was blind to what really mattered. But every time I look at her, I see what you carried alone, and I hate that you had to." Emily looked down at her hands. "I was angry for a long time," she said, "not just because you left me emotionally, but because I believed you never cared. Seeing you now, it is confusing." "Let it be confusing," Nathan said gently. "You do not have to decide anything today. Just know that I am here not for pity, not for redemption, but because I want to be." The sincerity in his voice filled the small room. Emily wanted to believe him, yet fear lingered like a shadow. "Nathan," she said quietly, "I cannot go through another heartbreak. Lily cannot either." "You will not," he said firmly. "Not again. I am not asking for a second chance at love. I am asking for a second chance at being human." She stared at him for a long time before finally exhaling. "You really have changed." "You and she changed me," he replied simply. Lily stirred, her tiny hand clutching his shirt. Nathan smiled and whispered, "Sleep, sweetheart." Emily rose to take Lily to her crib, but Nathan stopped her gently. "Let me." He carried the child into the small bedroom, tucking her in with care. For a long moment, he stood there watching her breathe, the innocence in her face both beautiful and humbling. When he returned to the living room, Emily was standing by the window, her arms crossed, her expression thoughtful. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She turned toward him, her eyes soft. "I am thinking that maybe people can change if they finally lose something worth keeping." Nathan nodded, stepping closer. "I almost lost everything, but I am still here because you gave me a reason to try again." The words hung in the air, quiet but certain. Outside, the city glowed beneath the night sky, and for the first time, Emily did not feel so alone. Nathan reached for the forgotten bouquet on the table, handing it to her. "They are simple," he said, "but they reminded me of you." Emily took the daisies, her fingers brushing his. The gesture was small, yet it carried the weight of forgiveness beginning to bloom. Neither spoke again, but both knew something had shifted. The past still lingered, but now it was no longer a chain. It was a lesson, one they would carry together into whatever came next. Over the next month, the quiet rhythm between Nathan, Emily, and Lily began to feel almost natural. Nathan visited often, sometimes helping with groceries, sometimes simply sitting on the floor with Lily as she built towers of wooden blocks. Emily watched them carefully, still cautious. But her defenses were no longer made of anger, they were made of fear that this new peace might not last. One Sunday morning, Nathan arrived with breakfast from the bakery down the street. The smell of fresh croissants filled the apartment as he placed the box on the table. "I thought maybe we could eat together," he said. Emily smiled faintly. "You are getting good at this family thing." "Trying to," he replied. "It feels better than the boardroom." They sat together while Lily babbled between bites of fruit, her laughter echoing softly off the small kitchen walls. For a few minutes, it almost felt like they had never been apart. But reality was patient. It waited quietly for its moment to remind them that healing was never that simple. Later that day, Nathan's phone buzzed. It was his assistant, Mark. Nathan ignored it at first, but when the phone rang again, Emily noticed the shift in his face. "Go ahead," she said, wiping her hands. "It might be important." He answered, his tone instantly businesslike. "What is it?" Mark's voice came through tense. "Sir, there is an emergency at headquarters. The new partnership is collapsing. The investors are threatening to pull out unless you meet with them tonight." Nathan hesitated, looking at Emily and Lily. "Tell them I will call in an hour." "Sir," Mark urged, "if we lose this deal, we lose the expansion project. It could cost millions." Nathan ended the call, his expression conflicted. Emily saw it immediately. "You should go," she said quietly. "This is your world, Nathan. It always will be." "It used to be," he said, "but it is not the only thing anymore." She looked at him, her voice gentle but firm. "You do not have to prove anything to me. I know who you are. Just do what you need to do." He exhaled, nodding slowly. "I will come back later," he promised. "You always say that," she replied softly. The words cut deeper than she intended, and she looked away quickly, busying herself with the dishes. Nathan stood for a long moment before walking to the crib and brushing his fingers against Lily's small hand. "I will be back, sweetheart," he whispered. But as he left, Emily's heart sank with a familiar ache, the one that came from watching someone choose the world over her. Hours passed. Evening fell. Emily put Lily to bed and sat by the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. She told herself not to care, not to wait, but part of her still hoped he would return. When the knock finally came close to midnight, she opened the door to find Nathan standing there, tired but smiling. "You came back," she said quietly. "I told you I would," he replied. "The meeting took longer than I thought, but I did not leave without telling them one thing." "What?" she asked. "That no deal is worth losing what I found again." Emily's eyes softened. "And did they believe that?" Nathan smiled faintly. "It does not matter if they did. I meant it." She let him in, and for a long time neither spoke. He sat beside her on the couch, his hands clasped. "I do not want to be that man anymore, Emily. The one who measures everything in dollars and deadlines." "Then stop trying to prove it," she said gently. "Just be here. That is all I need." Lily stirred in her sleep, a faint sound drifting from the bedroom. Nathan glanced toward the door, his face softening. "I missed her first steps," he murmured. "Then do not miss her first words," Emily said quietly. He nodded, understanding the unspoken forgiveness in her tone. Outside, the city moved restlessly, but inside that small apartment, the air was still. Nathan reached for her hand, not demanding, not certain, just hoping, and for the first time in years, Emily did not pull away. She let their fingers intertwine, fragile yet steady, like two people learning how to hold on without fear. The night was silent except for the faint hum of the city and the steady beat of hearts remembering how to trust again. The next few days brought a calm that felt almost fragile, as if the air itself was careful not to disturb the quiet peace growing between them. Nathan began stopping by Emily's apartment after work, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Sometimes he brought dinner, other times he simply sat on the couch and listened to her talk about her day. Lily had started saying short words now, small things like mama and ball, and Nathan's face would light up each time she spoke. He never realized how powerful such tiny words could be until they came from her. One evening, Emily invited him to join them for dinner properly, not as a visitor but as part of the table. She cooked simple pasta and vegetables, the kind of meal that reminded Nathan of nights they used to share before everything fell apart. The scent of garlic and tomato filled the small space, and for a while, it almost felt like home. "You are quiet tonight," Emily said, pouring him a glass of water. Nathan smiled faintly. "I am just taking it all in." "What are you thinking about?" she asked. He hesitated before answering. "I am thinking that this right here is the first real meal I have had in a long time. Not because of the food, but because of the company." Emily blushed lightly, pretending to focus on her plate. "You have probably had fancier dinners." "Maybe," he said softly, "but never better ones." After dinner, while Emily washed the dishes, Nathan sat on the floor with Lily, stacking blocks into a tall, uneven tower. When it toppled, she laughed so hard that Nathan could not help but join her. The sound of their laughter reached Emily, who turned from the sink, her eyes soft. It was such a simple scene, but it carried more peace than any mansion or office Nathan had ever known. Later that night, when Lily was asleep, Emily and Nathan sat by the window, sharing the quiet city view. "You are different now," Emily said, her tone thoughtful. "I keep waiting for the old you to show up again, the one who would check his phone every 5 minutes. Nathan chuckled lightly. "He still exists, but I am trying not to let him run my life anymore." "It is not easy," she said. "You built everything around that version of yourself," he nodded, "and it almost destroyed everything that mattered. I do not want to lose that again." She looked at him carefully. "You are really serious about this, aren't you?" "More than I have ever been about anything," he said. "But I know it will take time for you to believe that." Emily exhaled slowly. "It is not disbelief, Nathan. It is fear. I just do not want to wake up one day and realize this was temporary." He turned toward her, his voice steady. "It is not temporary. I am not asking you to forget the past, but I am asking for the chance to rewrite the rest of it." Emily fell silent. Outside, a siren echoed faintly through the streets, then faded into the night. "Do you remember?" she asked quietly. "The last thing I said before I left?" "Yes," he said. "You told me I did not know love." "Do you think you do now?" Nathan thought for a long moment before answering. "I am learning, and if I am lucky, you and Lily will be my teachers." The honesty in his words broke something open in her chest. She smiled, a soft, uncertain thing. "That might be the first time you ever admitted not knowing everything." "Then I am finally growing up," he said with a small laugh. Emily shook her head, though her smile deepened. "Maybe you are." The clock ticked quietly between them. Nathan stood, taking her empty cup to the sink. "I should go. You both need rest." Emily followed him to the door. "Thank you for dinner," he said sincerely. "For letting me be here." "Thank you for showing up," she replied. He opened the door, then paused, looking back at her. "Emily, I will not promise perfection, but I will promise presence." She met his gaze, her heart steady for the first time in years. "That is a start," she whispered. He smiled, closing the door softly behind him. When Emily turned back toward the room, she noticed something on the table, a small wooden toy Nathan had carved earlier that day during a break at work. It was shaped like a heart, uneven but honest. She picked it up and held it close, realizing that sometimes love returns not in grand gestures but in quiet ones, shaped by hands finally learning how to hold gently. The following week brought a quiet balance that neither Nathan nor Emily had expected. Nathan continued to visit every evening, always arriving with something thoughtful, a small meal, a story from his day, or a toy for Lily that made her squeal with laughter. It was no longer awkward, no longer filled with hesitation. It felt like a rhythm they had forgotten but somehow remembered together. On Thursday, Emily invited Nathan to join them for a walk to the nearby park. The late afternoon light was soft, and the air smelled faintly of rain. Lily toddled between them, holding one of each of their hands, her tiny steps uneven but full of determination. "She loves the outdoors," Emily said, smiling as Lily tried to chase a pigeon. "She is fearless," Nathan replied, watching her run after the bird that was twice her size. "She gets that from you," Emily laughed lightly. "She gets her stubbornness from you." Nathan looked at her, his tone warm. "Then she is in trouble either way." For a while, they walked in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the city blending with the laughter of children around them. When Lily grew tired, Nathan lifted her onto his shoulders, and she clapped her small hands, delighted by the new height. Emily watched the two of them, her heart full and fragile all at once. She had spent so long surviving alone that the sight of them together felt almost unreal. When they sat on a park bench to rest, Nathan glanced at her. "Emily, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead," she said. He hesitated. "What would it take for you to trust me again?" She looked down, tracing the edge of the bench with her fingers. "Trust is not a switch you flip on," she said softly. "It is something you build, slowly, over time, and even then, it is fragile." Nathan nodded, his voice low. Then let me build it, even if it takes years. She studied him for a moment, and in that instant, she saw no arrogance, no pretense, only sincerity. You really mean that, do you? Every word, he said. The man you knew before would have given up if things did not go his way. I am not that man anymore. She smiled faintly. We will see. As the sun began to set, they walked back to the apartment, Lily asleep in Nathan's arms. He carried her carefully, as if holding something sacred. When they reached the building, Emily unlocked the door and turned to him. Do you want to stay for a bit? She asked. Nathan's eyebrows lifted slightly. Are you sure? It is just dinner, she said quickly, though a blush crept up her neck. I could use the company. Then I would like that, he replied. Inside, the evening unfolded with a kind of peace that felt earned. They talked about simple things, movies, books, childhood memories. At one point, Emily mentioned how she used to play piano, but had not touched one in years. I remember that, Nathan said. You used to play on rainy nights. We did not have many of those together, she said softly. He met her gaze. Maybe we will again. Later, when Lily stirred in her crib, Nathan went to check on her. Emily followed quietly and stood at the doorway as he adjusted the blanket around their daughter. The sight hit her with unexpected emotion. He looked so natural, so gentle. For the first time, she could picture him not as the man who left, but as the father who stayed. When he turned and saw her watching, he smiled, whispering, She is going to be amazing, you know. She already is, Emily said, her voice thick with feeling. Because she has you, Nathan added. Emily shook her head. Because she has both of us. For a moment, they stood in silence, their faces only inches apart, the soft glow from the nightlight bathing them in warmth. Nathan wanted to reach out, to touch her hand, but he did not. Instead, he whispered, Good night, Emily, and turned toward the door. Good night, Nathan, she replied. When the door closed behind him, Emily leaned against the wall, her heart trembling with something she had not felt in a long time, hope. She looked at Lily sleeping peacefully and whispered, Maybe love does not come back to finish what it started. Maybe it comes back to start over. Outside, Nathan walked to his car, the night air cool against his skin. For the first time in years, he did not feel like he was leaving something behind. He felt like he was finally on his way home. The next morning began with sunlight spilling gently through the thin curtains of Emily's apartment. The air smelled faintly of coffee and baby lotion, and for a brief moment, everything felt simple. Emily had not slept much, but her thoughts were softer than usual. The image of Nathan tucking Lily into bed replayed in her mind again and again. There had been something peaceful in his presence, something that no longer carried the cold weight of distance. As she prepared breakfast, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Nathan. Good morning. How are my favorite girls today? She smiled despite herself and typed back. Lily is already trying to feed her cereal to her toy bear. I am fine. How about you? His reply came quickly. Running late for a meeting, but thinking about pancakes with both of you instead. She shook her head, amused. Nathan Reed, the man who once lived by calendars and deadlines, was now texting about pancakes. It felt strange, but in a good way. The day went on quietly. Emily worked from home, typing reports while Lily played beside her. Around noon, there was a soft knock on the door. When she opened it, Nathan stood there, holding a paper bag and a shy smile. I had a lunch break, he said, and a craving for pancakes. Emily laughed, stepping aside to let him in. You are impossible. Maybe, he said, but I am persistent. They ate together at the small kitchen table, laughing as Lily tried to grab Nathan's fork. It felt natural, almost like old times, except this time the silence between them was warm instead of heavy. After lunch, Nathan glanced at the clock. I have to get back to the office soon, he said reluctantly. Big presentation this afternoon. Good luck, Emily said. You do not need it, but I will say it anyway. I will take all the luck I can get, he replied, grinning. Before leaving, he bent down to kiss Lily's forehead, something he now did instinctively. Emily watched, her chest tightening in a way that scared her and comforted her all at once. When he was gone, the apartment felt a little too quiet. That evening, while Emily prepared dinner, the phone rang. It was Nathan's assistant, Mark. His tone was urgent, but calm. Miss Brooks, Mr. Reed asked me to call. He had a dizzy spell during the meeting and was taken to the hospital for observation. He is fine, but he wanted you to know. Emily froze, her heart racing. "Which hospital?" she asked. "Street, John's on Fifth Avenue." She did not even realize she was grabbing her coat until Lily's small voice pulled her back. "Mama?" Emily knelt, her hands shaking. "It is okay, sweetheart. We are going to see Daddy." The words slipped out naturally, surprising even her. Within 30 minutes, she was walking through the sterile white halls of Street John's, Lily in her arms. When she reached the room, Nathan was sitting up in bed, pale but smiling. "You did not have to come," he said softly. "Of course I did," she replied. "You scared me." "Just exhaustion," he said. "The doctor said I have been working too much again." Emily frowned. "You promised you were slowing down." "I am trying," he said. "But some habits die hard." Lily reached out from Emily's arms, babbling happily at the sight of him. Nathan took her gently, pressing a kiss to her cheek. "Looks like someone is not mad at me," he said. Emily sat beside the bed. "She never is, but I might be." "Fair enough," he said with a small laugh. "I will make it up to you. No meetings for the rest of the week. Doctor's orders." "Are those his orders or yours?" "Both," he said, smiling. Emily looked at him, her eyes soft. "You do not have to prove you can balance everything. You just have to choose what matters." Nathan nodded slowly, his gaze steady. "I already have." For a long time, neither spoke. Lily yawned, curling against his chest, and Nathan leaned back against the pillows, his hand gently covering Emily's. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of 3 hearts finally beating in time. For the first time since their divorce, Emily realized that she no longer saw a man broken by regret. She saw a man learning how to stay. And that, she thought, might be enough. It was late afternoon when Nathan Reed was finally discharged from the hospital. The doctor's words still echoed in his mind. "You are fine, but stress will catch up with you if you do not slow down." For the first time, Nathan took that advice seriously. When Emily arrived to drive him home, he smiled faintly. "You did not have to come." "You say that every time," she replied. "And every time I come anyway." Lily clapped from her car seat, babbling happily as if she understood everything. On the way back, they passed the familiar streets of the city, the same skyline that once symbolized power for Nathan but now simply looked like home. When they reached Emily's building, he hesitated before getting out of the car. "Emily," he said quietly, "I do not want to go back to an empty house tonight." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded toward the door. "Then do not." Inside, the apartment was filled with the soft chaos of everyday life, the sound of Lily's toys, the smell of dinner simmering, the comfort of imperfection. Nathan sat on the couch, watching as Emily moved through the small kitchen. "You know," he said softly, "this place feels more alive than my entire mansion." "That is because this place has people in it," she replied, smiling slightly. "You cannot fill silence with marble floors." He chuckled, shaking his head. "You are still better with words than I am." "Maybe," she said, "but you have gotten better at listening." After dinner, they took Lily to the park across the street. The air was cool, the first hints of autumn brushing through the trees. Nathan carried Lily in his arms as they walked beneath the fading light. She was half asleep, her head resting on his shoulder, her tiny hand gripping the collar of his shirt. Emily watched them quietly, her heart swelling with something deeper than forgiveness. When they reached the playground, Nathan stopped and looked at her. "Emily, can I tell you something?" She nodded. "Go ahead." He took a slow breath. "For years I thought success meant never needing anyone. I thought love was a distraction, a weakness. But then you walked away, and I realized that strength without kindness is just another form of emptiness." She looked down, her eyes glistening. "Nathan," he stepped closer, his voice steady, "I do not expect you to forget what happened. I only hope that when you look at me now, you see the man who finally understands what love means." She met his gaze, the truth in his words melting the last of her hesitation. "I do," she said softly. "I see him." For a moment, they stood there in silence, the world around them fading into the sound of leaves rustling in the wind. Nathan reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I lost you once because I was blind to what mattered. I will spend the rest of my life making sure that never happens again." Emily smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "Then stop talking and just stay." He smiled back, his hand finding hers, firm and sure. They walked home together beneath the streetlights, their shadows stretching side by side along the pavement. Back at the apartment, Lily was asleep within minutes, worn out from the day. Nathan and Emily sat by the window, the city glowing softly beyond the glass. "Do you ever think about what comes next?" she asked. "Every day," he said. "But for once I am not planning it. I am just living it." She nodded, leaning her head against his shoulder. "That is enough." They sat in silence, listening to the distant hum of traffic and the steady rhythm of the baby monitor. Nathan looked at Emily, and then at the sleeping child in the next room, and a quiet realization settled over him. This was not a second chance, it was a new beginning. He kissed the top of Emily's head, his voice barely above a whisper. "You once told me I did not know love. You were right, but now, because of you, I do." Emily smiled without opening her eyes. "Then maybe that is what love really is, not something we lose, but something we learn." Outside, the city lights shimmered like stars, and for the first time in a long while, Nathan Reed felt whole. He had everything money could buy, but sitting there beside Emily and their daughter, he finally understood the one thing he could never purchase: peace. In this emotional tale of love, redemption, and second chances, a powerful CEO learns the true meaning of family after losing everything that truly mattered. Once blinded by ambition, he discovers through a single mother and their daughter that wealth means nothing without compassion. This heart-touching narrative belongs among the most unforgettable millionaire stories that celebrate humanity over success. Every heartbeat, every whispered word, and every moment of healing builds a reminder that true riches are not measured in dollars, but in kindness and presence. Within the world of cinematic millionaire stories, this journey stands out as a timeless reminder that even the strongest hearts can break and be rebuilt with love. Filled with soft light, fragile forgiveness, and hope reborn, it belongs with other millionaire stories that explore the transformation from pride to humility, from loss to belonging. This is not just about money or power, it is one of those millionaire stories where the man who once had everything finds peace in what he almost lost, proving that sometimes the most beautiful endings begin with heartbreak.